2015 regular meeting of the Troy Planning Commission. Copies of the agenda for tonight's meeting are available at the entrance to the room. Additionally, the agendas and minutes of prior meetings are available on the city's website. The meeting will be conducted in accordance with the agenda as presented or amended by the Planning Commission. The roles and responsibilities of the Planning Commission are outlined on the reverse side of tonight's agenda. State law establishes planning commissions. The commission is comprised of 9 members, all of whom have volunteered to serve. Members are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by city council. The other individuals seated at the table this evening are representatives of the city's planning department, the city attorney's office, and the city's planning consultant, Carlisle Wortman Associates. If you wish to address the planning commission, please come forward when recognized and provide your name and address on the sign-in sheet. Please begin your remarks by stating your name for the benefit of the commissioners. All remarks are to be addressed to the planning commission, not to anyone else in the room. At this time, I ask that all cell phones, Blackberries, PDAs, or any other devices that might disrupt this meeting, please either be placed in silent mode or be turned off. Ms. Zarnicki, the roll call, please.
Mr. Apahidian?
Here.
Ms. Cruz?
Here.
Mr. Edmonds?
Here.
Mr. Faison?
Here.
Mr. Hudson? Mr. Krant?
Here.
Ms. Koopa?
Here.
Mr. Zanzika? Mr. Tagle?
Here.
The next item is the approval of the agenda. Could I have a resolution to approve? Mr. Apahidian? Thank you. Second, Mr. Tagle.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Mr. Krant?
Yes.
Ms. Koopa?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Apahidian?
Yes.
Next is the minutes of the December 8th, 2015 meeting. Could I have a motion to approve or to amend? Mr. Tagle, thank you.
Second.
Second by Mrs. Cruz.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Mr. Krant?
Yes.
Ms. Koopa?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Apahidian?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Agenda item number 4 is public comment for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to address the commission? Please go to the microphone and state your name, please.
Hi, this is Tom Newcold. I live at 1072 Bradley Drive.
Is that the one that's on the, no, it's not tonight, is it? Go ahead, sir, I'm sorry.
It was regarding that Bradley Square, which was considered by the Planning Commission and postponed to a later date.
That's okay.
It doesn't amplify, it just records, so that's
Okay.
fine.
Thank you that I'm able to talk. I don't want this to be long. I tried to prepare some notes. Basically, I live next door to the Bradley Park that's being proposed that was, I guess, put on the table last meeting that I found out about at the through the Troy Somerset Gazette. And basically, I'm the resident who lives next door to it. And I have just a few concerns and maybe one suggestion. And Brent has already mentioned that I could talk with him later, that he would allow me to talk with him and consult with the builders at a later time this week or sometime. Basically, number one is privacy. I have a neighbor across the street who is in the same situation, but he has businesses in front of him on Rochester Road. And he has a wall approximately 5 feet high, maybe 6 feet high, brick. This is one possibility. He said that if I were to request it, it should be something that would be allowed for someone like me in my position as a homeowner next door to this proposed site. That was one thing. The other thing has to do with water. I noticed in the meeting minutes and also in the Gazette that there was some talk about using, well, in the plan, the actual plan, there is a detention pond that is planned to be on the southwest corner of the property, and but then there was some proposals to use Boswell, some other type of methods to drain water, which I think are a little bit less, maybe less invasive, but also less effective. as far as running the water off. My property being next to this wooded lot, in the last 3 years, at least twice, I've had standing water, probably at least the size of this room, up to 1 foot in depth, that it would stay there for approximately weeks, if not a month, depending on the weather conditions. I'm just concerned that for the proposed plan is to have a 3.5-foot berm where these particular condos are going to be situated. And that would, in fact, basically hold the water like a dam into my property. My understanding is that this can be something that would be considered not acceptable because it would cause my situation to become worse based on the construction of the condos. After looking at this plan, I started thinking about it, and I noticed that there was a concern about the detention pond being in the southwest corner, but the northeast corner is also kind of out of the way. It's not on Rochester Road, and it's between my property and this condo area. And that might be an ideal situation for a retention pond instead of these other ways because of the amount of water. And it would allow for a natural boundary, and also would be closer to the source of the water problem, which is right on the boundary here. So that was one possible solution for the problem of water. And the other question my wife had was, when are you planning to start, and when will it be done? So I wrote a bunch of notes up, and they're not very good, but I would like to talk later about this.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Mr. Savage.
Real briefly, the, is it Newcold? Is that
Mr.
right?
Newcold, yes.
Newcold, Mr.
Yes.
Newcold. The development will not, by law, cannot drain onto your property. So they're gonna have to design it in such a way that it drains, into itself, and including use of the detention basin. But what I would like to do is offer you, when the applicant submits revised plans, I'll keep you in the loop. I'll provide you with a copy of those plans. I would like you to provide your comments in writing. It becomes part of the public record. I'm happy to share with the developer. And I can also set up a meeting with yourself and the engineering department to give you a comfort level with the proposed drainage on the property.
Okay, yes, thank you very much. And that would be great.
And you can also attend the next meeting where that revised plan will be considered by the Plan Commission.
Okay, yeah. What I saw from the plans was there was a tree line of about 17 deciduous trees that would be bordering the property. And it looked like some of them are right on the border. So it didn't look to me like there was any plans for any kind of a wall or fence. So that was a question I had also regarding the boundary area. Okay.
I gave Mr. Newcold my card. He's going to contact me.
Yeah, I have your card, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak before the committee here.
Happy to have you. Thank you. Item number 5 is the Zoning Board of Appeals report.
Mr. Zanzika is absent. He did leave me a voicemail indicating that what he would like to tell the Plan Commission is there was a ZBA meeting, one item, and it was for a foundation, setback variance on a foundation for a garage, and it was approved.
Good, thank you. Number 6 is the Downtown Development Authority. Is there a DDA report?
Nothing to report.
There is no report tonight. Number 7, the Planning and Zoning report.
Yeah, we've got a special guest this evening, Mr. Chairman.
We do.
We've got Brian Kishnick, City Manager for the City of Troy, who is providing us information on the 2016 retreat.
Is it my turn, Mr. Savadon, Mr. Chair?
You're on.
I'm so happy. So a couple of years ago, there was no retreat for the city of Troy. When we got here, we established our first retreat with upper management and city council as a means to get together and just talk about what we do, get to know each other, and come up with some strategies. So that was called Start With Why, and it was why. You may see the why statement all over. It's probably not on this agenda page, is it, Brent? But anyway, the why statement was from that first retreat, which says, why do we do what we want to do? We want to be a great community. You know, everybody says that, but let's really drill down. The second year we did last year was finding the balance, and in that we added a lot of staff down in the organization. And so this year, the theme is Breaking Bad. And so, as you all know, I've invited the Planning Commission and the Downtown Development Authority, as well as staff. So I think we have about 80 to 90 people who are coming. And I think this is a really neat opportunity for staff, the two boards and the city council to come together, talk about things. We don't just do leadership, training, group, team building things. We actually talk about local government. And Breaking Bad, you're gonna see, is part of that. So Breaking Bad is a TV show. Has everybody seen it? Okay, I never have. But the staff, it's about a chemist who's trying to, raise money, Karen, for his wife who has cancer.
I think he has cancer, and he's a chemistry teacher, and he creates a meth lab as a way to make money.
So hence the chemistry theme and Breaking Bad. And it's really about us now finding those habits, finding those processes that need to be changed, need to be broken, and we need to go forward. And so now you see February 26th, Kresge is Friday night, and Saturday the 27th, Walsh College. Everyone should have that on their calendar. So this Breaking Bad, these difficult things, how many of you have opened up like a Tylenol thing?
Struggle with it.
Why do you struggle with it?
Because they have a child-proof cap.
Okay, and once you get that cap off, what happens? You run into the cotton.
Oh, that part, yeah.
And then you can't get the cotton out, right? And at this point, you should have had a headache, so now you're struggling. So, there's something Breaking Bad that we just think of on why do they, and I don't even know why they have that cotton in there.
Lawyers.
What's the lawyer got to do? Why does he want the cotton?
Just blame it on the lawyers.
Object. I am.
You know the business, and I know the chemistry.
Yeah.
Maybe you and I could partner up. Chemistry is the study of change. It is growth, then decay, then transformation. Some straight like you told us that at age 60, he's just gonna break bad.
So that's the retreat video that you should have received, and we really need you to contact Maggie in my office and let her know if you're coming. And if you're not coming, we also want to know that, because it's a large group now, 80 to 90 people, so planning is getting more and more precise and taking more time. So here are the elements that we'll be talking about real quickly. The first one, ID, does everyone know that on the periodic table? It's not there. It's just we made it up, and it's identity, and this is PR for process, and this is EN for environment, and this EX for expectation. So before you, and Tom Krentz got them out, laid out, we gave you each one. So I'm just gonna take 20 seconds, Mr. Chair, and get through this. The first one, identity, is we're trying to figure out what is Troy's identity, but not citywide, and you guys have done this in the master plan. But really, we want to focus on the Civic Center complex now, because that's the issue that keeps coming up. It's not just City Hall anymore, it's the entire area. This is Town Center, this is Civic Center, so you've got the Amber Apartments here, you have everything on this side. If you look at this, that's really a white canvas to determine what's the identity, what are we gonna be? There's no downtown, we're big, it's the Golden Mile, Big Beaver. But what do we want this to be? Because there's some real opportunities. And when Brent and I were looking at this earlier, wow, there is a lot of green space that really could be something. So let's talk about it. Breaking Bad, the second one, is the process. That's one of those where when I go places, it's not the situation where change for change is change. People are averse to change. It's one of those. I can't believe we do that. You know, I can't believe they do that. I can't believe they put cotton in a pill thing. I mean, I don't get it. But all it does is make it, I can't believe we don't have a sign at the front door that shows people, tells people where to go. If you need to get a passport at City Hall, you have no idea when you walk in the front door. No idea. Unless I'm down there and I escort you, right? So I can't believe we do that. I can't believe they do that. Environment, this is, you know, now we're talking about bringing the Planning Commission, the DDA, the City Council, staff. How do we all work together to create the environment? So Breaking Bad is, let's get rid of the islands, right? That's why we're all coming together. That's why now we're including some boards. Okay, so that's what that is. And this is expectations. So the Breaking Bad is, you know, everyone talks, I still go places and I hear people talking about the recession. Isn't Detroit bankrupt? No, Detroit's coming back now. What about Troy? What about Troy? We've got momentum, and we need to stoke that momentum, right? So we need to fan the flames and make sure that we're talking about positive here at Troy. It's but we've got a lot of work to do. Let's just leave it at that, for here. So here's the Breaking Bad agenda as a draft right now. This is subject to change. We will have Kresge Foundation President Rip Rapson do a welcome at the Kresge Foundation, which is a phenomenal facility if you haven't been there. Then we'll do the identity. What are we thinking about here? The 3 men in a truck presentation. That's where I sent Brent, Glenn, and Mark. I told them you can go anywhere in the United States. Go look at some municipalities and see what you can bring back on mixed-use development, residential development. They chose to go to Indiana and Ohio.
I could have swore you said the Midwest.
Okay. See the Breaking Bad? Like, you know, the translation sometimes gets lost. You gotta make sure what I said. So they're gonna do a great tour presentation so we know what they found, right? And then we have the expert panel discussion where new urbanist Bob Gibbs, known all over, right here in Birmingham. You guys, probably many of you know him, but he's a new urbanist, and Carmel, is it Carmel or Carmel?
Carmel.
Carmel?
No, Carmel.
Carmel in California?
Carmel, California.
Carmel.
Carmel, Indiana.
Like the candy.
Like the candy.
So the mayor, who these guys are really impressed with, and we'll save it for then, has confirmed today that he's coming. And he's done a lot of work, Brent, 20-some years, he's been the mayor. It's a strong mayor form of government, so that's his only weakness. Civic Center ideation, so then we're gonna talk about, Terry got that. Then we're gonna talk about this, what are some ideas? Let's draw it out now. Yeah, you talked about what the identity is, but let's draw in here, and then get some feedback from the panel. Saturday, while we have them here. Then Walsh College will be, is where we'll be. President Stephanie Bergeron, my good buddy, will do the welcome, and she's just phenomenal. And then we'll do Breaking Bad. We'll go into the breakouts. I can't believe we do that, how we work together. Lunch, we always have a lunch speaker. Last year was Jeff Ishbia from United Shore Financial Services, who was a national champion basketball player with Mateen Cleaves at Michigan State University. In case anyone's wondering, that means they were #1 in the nation. How does that correlate to tonight? I think they're still #1 in the nation tonight. So this year it's Dr. Lee Meadows, who is a very good speaker. Do you know him, John? Or
I've heard him speak before.
did you think he was good?
I did.
Yeah, we've got a lot of great feedback on him. And then the stoking the momentum, the breakout, we do a couple of things, but the main one there is where we develop strategies that I follow and staff follows for the next calendar year. So any questions, I'd be happy to take them. If not, that's the retreat that we've invited you to. Regrets to Maggie, or if you're RSVP to Maggie, we need to have that because the numbers are significant now.
Sounds like a great session. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the agenda item is number 8, the street vacation, public hearing. Street revocation request SV 191. 10 feet of alley east of John R. between Gabriel and Vermont, abutting parcel 2020 Gabriel on the east and vacant parcel 88-20-25-309-002 on the west. Section 25, currently zoned R1E, one family residential district, abutting properties. Mr. Simon.
Got it. This is a general location map showing where the proposed vacation is located. It's off of John R. north of Maple Road. And the owner of this vacant lot, this lot is 40 foot wide by 100 foot deep. And what they're proposing, this is a platted alleyway that's 20 foot wide. It was platted in 1926, and he's proposing to vacate that. By vacating it, the city basically hands over the ownership of the property. And what he wants to do is build a house on that vacant lot. But if he gets the vacation, he can make it 10 foot deeper. So instead of 25 by 40, he can do it 25 by 50. So there's a benefit. This is a closer up for aerial. This is the lot. We're only talking about a 10 by 40 alleyway here. That's proposed to be vacated. And notice to the north. So here's 20 feet. Notice to the north, it's 10 feet here. It's been entirely vacated here, and there's only 10 feet remaining here. So there's a history over time of this alleyway being vacated. So this is consistent with past efforts. This is the zoning district map layer. You notice that as a right-of-way, it's not zoned. This is the original plat again from 1926. And here's north is this way to the right, but here's the alleyway that was platted originally and has been vacated over time. So what they're seeking is only the vacation of that 10 foot by 40 foot alleyway. There are underground utilities in that alleyway, so the city will retain an easement for underground and overhead utilities. But if approved, that 10 feet by 40 foot section would be owned by the property owner, and they'd be able to build their home closer to the property line than it is now.
Any questions for Mr. Sabadat? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak on this matter? Seeing no one, we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion or a resolution. Mr.
I
Taylor.
have a question.
Yes.
Brent, what are the maintenance requirements for that area, since it's going to be an easement in perpetuity? Does the property owner, if it is vacated, have any stipulated requirements to maintain that? I know he can't build on it, but beyond that.
I want to say that he's actually responsible now as a right-of-way to maintain it based on Chapter 81. My guess is he's probably maintaining it now. The stipulation is going to be that he's not going to be able to construct any structure or any building in the easement.
Good.
Yeah.
Quick question for you, if I may. Since that alleyway is it's got little segments that are been vacated and not, is there something, I'm just saying, why doesn't the city just vacate the whole thing, just call it one day, call it the whole thing and just get rid of it? We don't need it, we don't use it as an alley, it's used as a utility place for utility.
It's a good question. Actually, when we've got a couple of these applications recently, there was this one and the Amber one.
I remember
And when they're circulated, the DPW always seems to say, yeah, we're fully in support of it because it's less that we have to be involved with it, cutting down. If a tree falls or whatever, we have to go help take the tree out or whatever. So it is easier on the city. That's a good point. I think there's validity to maybe looking at entire sections at once and doing it with one fell swoop.
I know it's not part of this discussion today,
Yeah.
but I just thought for future, because we approve a vacation here, and then the council approves a vacation, it goes on and on and on, just all done, and
Yeah, and what this does, it does raise people's awareness. Kathy, we had probably a dozen calls on this, because of the sign, and people people don't really know what a street vacation is. It's really not a common thing, so a lot of people were calling, curious as to what this was, and so I spent a lot of time on the phone informing people, what was proposed here, so, which I'm happy to do. But I think there's merit to that.
We'll have somebody bring it up to council and say,
Yeah.
It'll be a council action, not ours, I take it.
I'll talk about it internally and see how we want to progress. There may be some more validity to vacating some alleyways than others, for whatever reason,
Okay, thanks.
Okay. There's no further discussion. Can we have a motion?
I think we have to public hearing.
I think you open
Did you open
and
it?
I
close
did
it.
open. We close it and then do the motion. Okay, the hearing is closed and bring it back to the table for a motion. Mr. Taylor.
Let's see.
Okay, Jason.
Yep, thank you. It's resolution number PC-2015-12. Resolved that the Planning Commission hereby recommends to City Council that the street vacation request as submitted for an alley located east of John R. between Gabriel and Vermont, approximately 10 feet wide by 40 feet in length, abutting lots 45 and 46 of Sussex Park subdivision, section 25, be approved subject to the following. An easement shall be maintained for underground and overhead utilities. And I'd also like to add the second recommendation made by city management that no structures or buildings shall be constructed within the easement.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Corrett, thank you. Further discussion? Okay. Roll call, Ms. Nardicky, please.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Mr. Krantz?
Yes.
Ms. Koopa?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Abahidian?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes. Next item is zoning ordinance text amendment. Again, we'll open this as a public hearing. Zoning ordinance text amendment, file number ZOTA 248, woodland protection. Mr. Savage?
We spent a number of months on this effort, and it's been reviewed internally by all staff, including the city attorney. And tonight's public hearing, and it's the last time the planning commission is going to see it prior to going for city council for consideration. So it is a public hearing. So I know we've talked about this a great deal, but I thought it was only right for those in the audience and those at home that I'd kind of go into some detail. It's 20 slides. I think I can get through relatively quickly, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chairman.
No, that's fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
so this is a woodland protection ordinance, and a brief summary, that this ordinance is intended to require tree mitigation and encourage and incentivize tree protection, but not requiring tree preservation. This is not a heavy-handed approach that other communities around here have taken. This is not a cookie cutter ordinance. This was handcrafted to meet the needs of the city of Troy, okay? This is a one-off. It was a very difficult language to write, but I think it hits what we're trying to achieve. So tree mitigation shall apply to any property that requires site plan approval. It will not apply to single-family developments that do not require site plan approval. So for those sitting at home who are in their single-family residential lot right now, don't stand up in your chair and say, you're not allowing me to cut down my tree, you're not allowing me to prune my tree. It doesn't apply to this situation. This is for developments that require site plan approval. It allows exceptions for dead, dying, diseased, and non-desirable or invasive species. And basically how this is written, it recognizes that all applications and site conditions are different. So it allows different approaches for different situations. It's flexible. So here's how the outline of how it's formatted. In terms of purpose and intent, there's a general statement you typically see regarding adherence to public health, safety, and welfare. It's intended to maintain and improve environmental and water and air quality, and to reduce erosion, siltation, and prevent flooding. and it also references the necessary acts. Again, I can't stress this enough, the applicability here is for parcels that require site plan review and subdivision review. Okay, it's very important, it's not heavy-handed. One thing that we need to be aware of is word is getting out that that we're undertaking this effort, and what we don't want is a race of property owners really getting aggressive with the chainsaws and clear-cutting properties, getting ready for this to be approved. So basically, based on aerial photography, if it's determined that a property owner has removed protective trees within the last 5 years, basically to circumvent this, the planning commission may require additional landscaping. So we want property owners to work with us, not against us. Does not apply to existing single-family properties. Does not require tree removal permit for parcels that are not in development review process. I'm trying to really make it clear to people that, again, not heavy-handed. So what this does is it regulates landmark trees and woodlands. And a landmark tree is defined as a woody plant in a healthy live condition that meets the minimum size requirements. So these are some examples of trees. So a landmark tree, if it's a beech tree, is at least 18 inches in diameter. For an oak tree, 16 inches, etc., depending on what species. A woodland is defined as a quarter acre or more of contiguously wooded land where the largest trees measure at least 6 inches in diameter. And that's DBH, I'll say that a few times here, diameter at breast height. So you measure the tree's diameter, basically here, so DBH. So we're talking about protecting landmark trees, standalone landmark trees, as well as woodland areas. So there are exemptions to the requirements. Parcels that are not subject to site plan review, as I mentioned a number of times. Tree trimming and removal that's necessary for government or public utility reasons. If it's within a public right-of-way, if it's dead, dying, or diseased, if it's an invasive species, or if it's a tree that's become a potential danger to human life or property. These are exempt from the requirements. So in terms of replacement, if it's a landmark tree and it's proposed to be cut down, 100% of the DBH, the diameter, must be removed. Must be replaced, excuse me. So if you remove 16 inches of a landmark tree, you've got to replace 100% of that, so 16 inches. If it's a woodland tree, you've got to replace 50% of the diameter. So if it's a total of 100 inches in the woodland, you got to replace 50 inches of that. And that's so the replacement requirements are in addition, above and beyond other landscape requirements. In terms of minimum replacement size, if it's a deciduous tree, which drops its leaves in the fall, it's got to be at least 2.5 inches caliper. If it's a coniferous tree, the equivalent is a 6 foot in height. It's more difficult to measure because of the needles and the branches. And the planning commission approves the tree replacement plan, and it's got to be prepared by either a certified forester or a registered landscape architect. In terms of incentive protection, there's 3 things that the applicant can do. They can protect and preserve existing trees. That's the first thing we want, is preservation and protection of existing trees. But if that can't happen, then what we want is mitigation on site. But if there's reasons specific to the property and the application, the developer can also pay into a tree fund, and trees can be planted elsewhere in the city to replace those trees. That's kind of the third tier and the least desirable, but it's still important to get that canopy in the city versus just clear cutting and not having any trees at all. So, and getting back to the third option, the planning commission may allow for tree replacement off-site based on the size of the parcel, so there's no available area for planting, or the tree condition or development requirements may make conformity to the section difficult or undesirable. And basically, if they want to plant, if planting off-site is an option, they pay into a tree fund, and that includes not only the cost of the tree, but the cost of the planting of the tree. And there are techniques in the language to preserve existing trees, not only on the site but next to the site. if there's gonna be some clear cutting on the site, we wanna protect those trees on other properties that may be impacted by activities on the site. And if there's a protected tree that is identified that dies within 3 years after start of construction, it's gotta be replaced. So I did a couple, these are my last couple slides here, a couple of test cases here. Pinery Woods, remember this one? This basically started our effort for doing this language. And this basically is a woodland here. It's really, you know, more than half the property. So what happened for this case is, you know, we looked at the tree preservation plan that was provided, and in terms of woodland trees removed, there was 366 trees taken down, totaling 2,305 inches, which is an average of 6.3 inches per tree. So they're pretty big trees. So the mitigation required, this is like kind of like a ledger. 1,153 inches that under this ordinance that would have to be provided. They did preserve 6 trees. So out of 372, they preserved 6, totaling 45 inches. They get credit for 90. So the total here, the total is they would have to provide 1,063 inches diameter on the site, which is the equivalent of 425 trees at 2.5-inch caliber. That's an extreme example based on the fact that there's significant woodland here. That's a lot of trees, and they were clear cut. This is the DMC Children's Hospital site next door. Totally different scenario here. They weren't proposing to remove any woodland trees or preserve any woodland trees. There were 8 landmark trees removed, totaling 191 inches. However, there were 8 landmark trees preserved, totaling 86 inches. So at the end of the day, they would have only had to plant 19 inches, so that's 8 trees at 2.5-inch caliber. So getting back to my point, it's an approach that's flexible based on the particulars of the site and the particulars of the application. It's intended to be flexible and to provide it, to encourage but not require preservation. There's significant benefit to the developer if they preserve existing trees. Yes?
I'm just curious, when you talk about trees that have a 2.5-inch caliper, do we know how successful trees that are that small are when you replant them? I mean, how many would you expect to die?
Well, it all
If you're
boils.
planting 10, how many are going to survive?
Yeah, it's a difficult question to answer because if you're using a reputable company that's providing the trees, so they're grown in a healthy condition, they're not diseased, they're well maintained, and they're reputable, like a Bordines, and there's other. That's not the only one, but that's one
Right.
example. And if they're transported properly. If it's a fly-by-night developer and they get the trees they put on the back of the pickup truck and they drive down the freeway at 70 miles an hour, congratulations, you've just introduced all your trees to a 70-mile-an-hour windstorm as you're transporting them. I mean, a reputable landscape company won't do that. So how they're grown, how they're transported, and ultimately how they're planted, and then how they're maintained after they're planted. So there's a lot of factors here. So if all those factors are top shelf, your chances of success are higher, and your rate of dying in diseased trees is going to be way lower. Is it realistic to assume that 100% of trees are going to survive every time? No, it's not. But if you use reputable, a landscape company, reputable landscapers, and people and things like when you put the guy wires up and you hold them with that ring,
Right.
those rings will choke a tree out if you don't cut it after a certain amount of time. So little things like that.
Well, doesn't a 2.5-inch caliper tree need those little rings?
Yes.
And so then, I guess my question is, how do you make sure all that happens?
Well-
Or can you? Is that even realistic?
If it's it gets back to case by case basis, and there's often situations where the developer is voluntarily going to plant more than 2.5 inches, just because they want more of a kind of a landscaping bang for the buck. So they're going to say, we're not going to give you 8 trees at 2.5, we're going to give you 4 trees at 5, or there's going to be more of a mix. So it's the bigger the tree, the better the chance of success. long-term, but it still comes down to the quality of the tree and the quality of the workmanship to put the tree in and maintain the tree once it's planted.
Is it reasonable to have an approved list of nurseries that we would,
I think-
and give any nursery in town the ability to get on that list, assuming they maintained certain minimum requirements, or?
We haven't done that, and it's a good idea. I agree with the idea, and not only for for nurseries, but for engineers and landscape architects, and contractors. We could have lists like that for all kinds of things. I think.
We could call it Brent's list.
Yeah, Brent's list. Yeah, but Brent doesn't like to be sued, so let's not call it Brent's list. But for something like, as an example, DMC Children's Hospital, they're going to hire the best. They're going to so that's not the person I'm really worried about. And for Pinery Woods, Joe Maniaci, he hires good landscapers. He hires good. So I'm not really worried about those types of. It's kind of the fly-by-night person, maybe the smaller person who doesn't know any better. That I'd be a little bit more worried about. But I've never been asked for a good landscaper, but I know who they are.
Mhm.
The list is a little. I'd want to consult with this guy before I put together an actual list to see what he thought. But it's a good idea.
But I think that if we want this to be successful, we want the trees to have a fighting chance,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And a 2.5-inch caliper tree to me is a branch.
Right. Now, one thing to keep in mind is we treat a site plan and a landscape plan, which is part of a site plan, as a contract. And we will go out and do a site visit, and if there are dead or dying trees early on, we'll get them to replace it before we grant site plan compliance, before they get a certificate of occupancy. But again, if it's a year, 2 years, 3 years after, and the tree's dying, they're in
That
violation of their
happens.
contract, and we will enforce, and we will remind them that they've got to replace that tree.
Any other comments or questions? Mr. Faison?
I just had a question on this example, Brent. I think you said earlier in the projection, in the presentation, you had to replace the landmark trees 100%, is that correct? But here, are there 16 trees at the beginning and?
You get, if you preserve a landmark tree, you get a bonus. You get a bonus, 2-to-1 bonus for preserving it. So-
Maybe you can take down
So if you
one landmark tree for every landmark tree you preserve?
No, if you preserve a 15-inch landmark tree, you get credit for 30 inches. So it's an incentive. So the more you preserve, the less you have to plant. So it encourages you to preserve landmark trees. 2-to-1.
I was just wondering if you end up with less trees than you started with in that scenario. You had the 16 with however many inches. At the end of this example, you have the 8 landmark trees and then the new ones. I mean,
So 16
you
are
have
16
what
are
are the
there.
inches before and after? Is that where they run?
16 are there today.
Right.
They take down 8, they replace 8, they're at, right? So they removed 8, but they preserved 8. So they were at 16, but now they're at 8, but they planted 8 more, so they're at 16 again.
Okay.
But the 8 additional are smaller.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Some communities go 100%, again, it gets back to not being heavy-handed, and we wanna be flexible, we wanna strike a balance between Troy continuing to be a great place to live, continuing for developers to be respectful of the neighbors, continuing to have a great canopy and all these things, but also recognizing that there's a development community that wants to move forward as well. So this is our balance.
I understand.
Okay. Anyone else? This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to be heard on this item?
I'll make
Yes. Please go to the microphone.
Would you like to sign in?
Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Kerry Kribishy, and I live at 1259 actually. And I went over this plan. I got an advance copy from Brent a couple weeks ago. I looked through the proposed ordinance, and I think it's really great. I didn't see any major issues with it. I tend to agree wholeheartedly that we need a tree ordinance in the city of Troy. It's a former farm community that has had a lot of trees, and it's a good idea to try and preserve as many trees as we can, but the ones that we cut down, I think it's a good idea to try and replace them. Because they may seem small at that time, but over the long term, I think it'll add a lot of value to the city. And as far as the size of the trees, I'd just like to comment that a 2 to 2.5 inch caliper is a pretty good sized tree when it comes to plant. It doesn't really appear like it is because it's sort of somewhat small, but most of them are potted or balled and burlapped. And a lot of the trees that I've seen planted around the Detroit metropolitan area that have been that size have a very, very good success rate. Back in 2005, when they removed the ash trees and started to plant trees, they were planting a lot of 1 inch caliper bare root trees. And those had a very high loss rate. The ones that have a root system, I think, are a pretty good size, because if you put it in a tree that's too large, you've got a lot of transplant shock, and those trees require a lot more maintenance. So I think that a 2.5 inch caliper is a real good size. Last but not least, the only other comment I would make about the plan is that you mentioned invasive species in there, and you might want to list those invasive species by their botanical name. That's the only change that I would make. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll bring it back, close the public hearing and bring it back to the table for a resolution or further discussion. Ms. Cooper.
I'd like to propose a resolution. Resolution number PC-2015-12- Resolved that the Planning Commission hereby recommends to the City Council that Articles 8 and 13 of Chapter 39 of the Code of the City of Troy, which includes miscellaneous provisions related to woodland protection, be amended as printed on the proposed zoning ordinance text amendment.
I'll second.
Ms. Cooper and Mr. Krantz, thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Krantz?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Apahidian?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes. So that'll be going on to the City Council now for another public hearing.
Correct.
Thank you. Item number 10 is the master plan update.
That's me.
That's you again. You're a one-man show.
One-man show. I'm out of practice here. Usually have my sidekick who's not here. So we've got a 277-page draft document that's before you. And Karen raised a really good point today. See, when I leave, the city for 3 days, the state for 3 days, we're going to provide the Planning Commission with hard copies, color hard copies, that you can, because what we want you to be able to do is have it available for markups and comments and whatnot. So we'll provide that to you. We weren't able to make copies in time for tonight's meeting, but we can, we'll get those to you in a timely fashion. So, and we're probably going to have a different cover. If anyone has any ideas or any art that you really feel strongly about, share with me, and we'll try to come up with something. But basically, the focus of the revisions are this chapter here, which is, geez, I haven't thought of Roman numeral in a while. Chapter 8, people, the changing face of housing demand, and also Chapter 10, the special area plans. And this is the focus. And I'm not going to go over these chapters in detail this evening for a number of reasons. One, we did at the last meeting, there was a pretty lengthy PowerPoint, and also it's got to come back to the Planning Commission for a public hearing in the future. So we'll kind of save the lengthier presentation for that evenings. But in terms of process, as required by state law, what the Planning Commission is, we'd like the Planning Commission to do this evening. There's a drafted a resolution in front of you, is basically submit the proposed draft master plan to city council for review and comment, and recommend that city council distributes the plan for review as per the requirements of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act. Basically, when city council distributes the plan, there's a 63-day review period, not 60, not 61 or 64, 63 days. And the plan is distributed to all the surrounding communities, Oakland County, SEMCOG, public utility companies, and there's a number of people that will get a copy of this plan to review and comment. Then we wait for comments, and then we bring those comments back to the Planning Commission, who holds a public hearing, and then makes a recommendation for action on the plan. So it's a lengthy, kind of a sometimes confusing process, but this is one of the final steps here to get this thing adopted.
Okay. This is not a public hearing, but if there's anyone in the audience who wants to speak on this item, they're certainly welcome to. Seeing no one, we'll go ahead. Is there someone want to read the resolution as printed, please? Mr. Craig.
Resolution PC 2015-12. Resolved that the Planning Commission hereby submits the proposed draft master plan to the City Council for review and comment, and be it finally resolved that the Planning Commission recommends that the City Council approves the distribution of the draft master plan as per the requirements of the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, PA 33 of 2008, as amended.
Seconded by Mr. Tagle. No further discussion. We'll have the roll call, please.
Mr. Kren?
Yes.
Ms. Koopa?
Yes.
Mr. Tagle?
Yes.
Mr. Abhidian?
Yes.
Ms. Cruz?
Yes.
Mr. Edmonds?
Yes.
Mr. Faison?
Yes.
Very good. The agenda item number 11 is public comment for items that are on the current agenda. Is there anyone else in the audience who wants to speak to the item that was on the current agenda? Seeing no one, we'll go to number 12, the Planning Commission comments. Tonight, let's begin with Ms. Koopa.
We finally did it. We gave something to the council to do with the woodland protection.
Yes.
So I'm really feeling good about that, that's all.
Go hug a tree.
I know.
Mr. Faison.
Nothing for me.
Mr. Abhidian.
I just wanted to comment also on the woodland protection. I think it's a fairly balanced document. Like Brent said, it's not heavy-handed, but it also provides for preservation for the city long-term, and I think it's a win-win.
Ms. Koopa, or Ms. Cruz, I'm sorry.
I'm going to join Ms. Koopa in the tree hugging. Tonight, I'm very pleased about the woodland ordinance, and so I'll be happy to see that put in place. And then I also I want to say a bad word, and that is the fracking. I know that when you say that word, it's highly, highly controversial, and I know a lot of people have reaction to it, but I think that like the woodland ordinance, it's better for us as a city to get in front of the fracking as soon as possible. So I would rather us have control over it than have it control us. So maybe that's sort of the next hot button we can push.
Mr. Sapple.
Oh, and happy holidays, everyone. Enjoy this time with your family and friends.
Regarding the fracking, so if you recall, we had a joint meeting with the Planning Commission and City Council. We had 3 different presenters,
Yes.
and there was a number of questions that were asked them, and we wanted to give each an opportunity to respond in writing to the
We
questions.
got those.
And 2 responded really quickly, and the third took a while. And you didn't receive an email recently, yeah. So we got those last week. I think the last person responded, and I had Kathy put them together in a format that was easy to read, and that's been shared with the city manager. And I'm confident that in the very near future he's going to provide. You've already got it?
We got them.
Just a step ahead of me. So
Yep.
good. So next steps, I'll let you know in terms of timing for next steps. But it's moving. It took a while. 2 months, Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
For the one person to respond, and we were waiting.
Thank you. Mr. Tagle?
Just wish everybody Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
Appreciate it. I got an email this afternoon from Kirk Bovensep about our TAP grant, been denied again. And it's interesting how it unfolded. The original one was denied because we had so much opposition from the people because it was going through their residential streets. Well, the reason this one was denied is because we are going on major roads, and they say what we're doing is replacing existing sidewalk with a wider sidewalk. They said it would probably be approved if we were more like the old way, the first way it was submitted. I mean, it's like a dog trying to catch his tail. It just, where do we go from there? Anyway, I just thought, I just mentioned that. I hope Kurt has some answers, and we can help bring that TAP grant to fruition.
Mr. Mazdi?
No, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
I think we did a really good thing tonight with woodland protection. I'm really proud of all of our work on this. I'm glad to see this come to fruition. I also wish every one of you a wonderful holiday and with all your families. And next meeting will be the first one in
Second Tuesday in January.
in January. And I just want to remind everyone that's the meeting at which we elect officers. Okay, I'm done then. Mr. Salmon, anything else?
Yeah, no, we had a very successful three-man-in-a-truck trip throughout the Midwest. I'm not going to steal the thunder of the presentation, but when people tell you that mixed use doesn't work in the Midwest, there are other communities doing it and doing it successfully.
Good. Glad to hear it.
What were the three cities? Carmel, Indiana?
In order, Dublin, Ohio, and then Fishers, Indiana, and then our last stop was Carmel, Indiana. And it was, again, not giving too much away. Dublin was their very first mixed-use project was under construction. So all we have is pictures we have renderings of what it's gonna look like and the construction site. And then Fishers has got a couple projects completed, but other ones are still under construction. So they're kind of getting there. And then Carmel's been doing it for 20 years.
Really?
So it was a building.
Diversity.
Yeah, it was very, very eye-opening.
Very good, very good. Okay, if there's nothing further, this meeting is adjourned.